The NFL free agency period appears to be on its tail end as most general managers are beginning to turn their eyes towards the draft. And although there are still a few NFL free agency decisions to be made, for the most part, I've seen what I have to see to make a list of the absolute 10 worst moves that I've seen this past offseason. Before we get to this list, guys, if you are new to the channel but you love football content, please take a moment to drop a like and subscribe, and also turn on notifications to make sure you never miss an upload during the springtime. In addition to that, I have an Instagram page if you want to follow that, and I also have a soccer channel and an NBA channel as well. Furthermore, feel free to make any suggestions for future uploads in the comment section down below. And also, before we get started, bear in mind that these decisions include trades as well. Anything that has occurred in the free agency period is fair game. So at number 10, we're going to start with the Bears trading a 4th round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars for Nick Foles. Now, don't get me started on Jacksonville's side of this, because their organization in a whole is completely in disarray after having a promising 2017 NFL season. But I'm talking about the Bears' decision to make this trade, because they are only 3 years removed from trading up to draft Mitchell Trubisky, who, don't get me wrong, hasn't been the most consistent player, but for the most part, he has been showing that he is capable, and he did have a good sophomore season before slumping in the 2019 NFL season. Nevertheless, the front office of the Chicago Bears thought it was necessary to go ahead and trade for probably the most expensive backup in all of football, just in case Trubisky doesn't work out. If you're trying to find a way to completely shatter the confidence of the man that you invested a number 2 overall draft pick in just 3 years prior, this is a surefire way of doing that. I don't understand the purpose of this decision. If it's to mentor Mitchell Trubisky, then Nick Foles is way too overpriced. So for the most part, we can assume that the Chicago Bears are trying to bring in Nick Foles to eventually become the starter. I just don't understand why they would do this. Trubisky is still on a rookie scale contract. You could be investing this type of capital and putting better pieces around him. I just don't understand why the Bears would make this decision. At number 9, we have the Bills trading for Stephon Diggs, as they gave up a 1st rounder, 4th rounder, 5th rounder, and 6th round draft pick in order to attain him. Now, I'm saying this is on the Bills side of things, not so much on the Minnesota Vikings, because Stephon Diggs wanted out of Minnesota. He didn't seem that willing to make it work with Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins, so he wanted out and he got his wish. But my issue with this isn't the trade in itself, it's rather the amount of capital the Buffalo Bills gave up in order to acquire Stephon Diggs. You see, I've said this in many videos in the past, this NFL draft is notorious for having a tremendous amount of wide receiver talent. Off the top of my head, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs all pop into mind, but Mel Kiper went ahead and said that there can be as many as 7 wide receivers taken within the first 45 picks of the NFL draft. So I would have liked to see the Buffalo Bills try to move up in the draft potentially to get the help that Josh Allen needs, as opposed to giving up a lot of draft capital in order to bring in a very expensive wide receiver that is proven but extremely expensive. Nonetheless, I still think that Stephon Diggs fills in a huge need for the Buffalo Bills, but I just feel like the Bills could have filled in the wide receiver position significantly more efficiently than the way they did. At number 8, we have the Cincinnati Bengals franchise tagging AJ Green and paying him $18 million at his age 32 season. Now, don't get me wrong, AJ Green is a great player. Without a doubt, he's a Hall of Fame player, but for the most part, if you look at his statistics when he even was on the field, ever since that game he had against the Jacksonville Jaguars and Jalen Ramsey back in 2017, he clearly hasn't been the same player. Now, of course, he has had some injury issues, and you could also point a finger at the fact that the culture that the Cincinnati Bengals have created in the Marvin Lewis era wasn't the most competitive. Nonetheless, this is a 32-year-old wide receiver. I don't understand paying him $18 million. Once again, this is a very deep draft for the wide receiver position. And although the Cincinnati Bengals are slated to select Joe Burrow with the number 1 overall pick, they could easily look at wide receiver with the number 33 pick, which I'm sure that they are going to. I just think that this money spent on AJ Green was better off saved for other improvements that could have been made for the Bengals. But once again, the front office of the Cincinnati Bengals isn't notorious for making great football decisions, and this just appears to be yet another one. At number 7, we have the Houston Texans signing Randall Cobb for 3 years and $27 million, which, by the way, I'm very happy for Randall Cobb for getting this contract, but this is a guy that's had one 1,000-yard receiving season in his entire career. He hasn't really been that dominant type of player since 2015, and even then you could say that he was a product of Aaron Rodgers during that year. Now, he would have been a great player to add to your roster for significantly less, and he definitely isn't going to mitigate the disaster of a trade that the Houston Texans made by shipping away DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals. Randall Cobb cannot be a number 1 wide receiver, and that's why he is here at number 7. Up next, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars trying to maintain a sliver of their culture from the past by franchise tagging Yannick Ngakoue. Now, look, Yannick Ngakoue is a phenomenal talent, and I understand why you would want to keep him, but there is no chance that this guy is going to stay with Jacksonville past this year. It's not like keeping him is going to do anything for your culture after you completely dismantled the pieces that made your franchise successful. Gone is Jalen Ramsey, AJ Boye, Calais Campbell, and Marcel Darius. Gone is Malik Jackson. And for the most part, gone is that team that would be able to carry you to an AFC championship in a year where the Patriots don't seem to be the most threatening team in the AFC. Now, of course, maybe the Jaguars could find a way to trade Yannick to some other team where he would be happy playing for him. But this just seems like the Jaguars are going through a tough breakup and they're having difficulty fully letting go. The Saxonville Jaguars are gone. Yannick is the final piece from that era, and I guess the Jaguars are doing whatever they could to maintain him. At number 5, we have the Chicago Bears signing Robert Quinn for 5 years and $70 million. Holy smokes. If there's anything I've learned from free agency over the past couple years, it's the power of the prove it deal. And Robert Quinn really proved himself on this 1-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys, notching 11.5 sacks and 8 assisted tackles for a combined 34 tackles. Now, he was always a fairly productive player. For the Miami Dolphins, he put up 6.5 sacks, and for the Rams, he was a double-digit sack guy in the beginning of his career, at least from 2012 to 2014. Signing him now that he's 29 years old for the next 5 years, chances are you're going to be getting that guy that could give you 6.5 to 8.5 sacks. But I'm sure the Chicago Bears are just trying to find Khalil Mack some additional help on the other side, and they're trying to double down on their identity as a defensive team that succeeds at pressuring the quarterback. Nonetheless, I feel like there was a significantly cheaper way of doing this, and I do not believe you will get your full return on investment by paying Robert Quinn for 5 years and paying him $70 million. Now up next, I have the Houston Texans making a very strange move, signing a player that I personally have never heard of for 3 years and $20 million, and that's safety Erik Murray. If there's one thing I've learned about the NFL in recent past, it's the fact that it's not really worth investing in the safety position unless if you got a player of Tyrann Mathieu or Earl Thomas on your hands. Now, even in those situations, in my opinion, the safety position is more of a luxury position to upgrade, and the Texans have holes all over their roster after making some questionable moves over the past year. So this signing is a slight overpay, and I have this signing up here really high because the Texans just keep digging a deeper and deeper hole and continuing to prove to us that Bill O'Brien is not a competent general manager. At number 3, I have the Chicago Bears signing Jimmy Graham for 2 years and $16 million. And this is just up here because no matter what, Jimmy Graham is still capitalizing upon his success from earlier in his career as a New Orleans Saint and from that 1 year that he succeeded with the Seattle Seahawks. He has not been a good tight end for many, many years, and he's notorious for dropping wide open passes and not being that game-changing red zone threat that he once was 10 years ago anymore. I do not understand why the Chicago Bears will go ahead and sign him, but they did, and although it's not that much of an overpay, it still puzzles me that the Bears would give this guy a contract. And number 2, I have the Miami Dolphins signing Erik Flowers for 3 years and $30 million. Now, you need to understand, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, and I am absolutely surprised that Erik Flowers is still in the league. Whenever we would face the New York Giants, I would get excited whenever Erik Flowers was in the game because he would give up easy sacks consistently. I personally believe that this is the guy that completely ended Eli Manning's career. I feel like Erik Flowers took off a good 3 years from Eli Manning's career just from poor protection. But nonetheless, he did move over to guard and he did improve slightly, but I still don't understand who would pay this guy $10 million a year to protect the quarterback or to try to dominate in the running game. It completely shocks me, and I am still in disbelief that the Dolphins would pay him this much. Which means the number one most terrible move I have seen in this entire offseason, and this should come as no shock to anybody, is the Houston Texans trading DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. I ran this trade through my head over and over and over again, and for the life of me, I cannot make sense out of it. For the life of me, it still just shocks me that the Houston Texans would just trade DeAndre Hopkins for a halfback that's past his prime when they could have easily got running back help in the NFL draft. You could have signed Todd Gurley. You could have waited a couple days and pretty much got the same exact type of player, the running back that once dominated the NFL, that is currently dealing with some injury issues and is a shell of his former self, in Todd Gurley. And that's nothing against Todd Gurley. It's just they dramatically overpaid by trading away a player that is a top 3 wide receiver in the entire NFL for David Johnson. And I could go on and on. I have a video about this. It still doesn't make sense to me. And it's just such a shame because I feel like I'm watching Deshaun Watson's career getting completely wasted away in Houston. And if you ask me, he 100% deserves better. Now, guys, if there is a signing that I completely omitted from this list, please let me know in the comment section down below, as well as let me know if there are any other videos that you would like to see on this channel. I'm your boy Mikerophone, and I'll catch you guys in the next upload.